1. The disappearance of Dennis Martin, 1969. Dennis Martin was a lively 6-year-old boy from Knoxville, Tennessee, who vanished without a trace in the heart of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. On Father's Day weekend in June 1969, Dennis, along with his father, brother, and grandfather, went on a family camping trip to Spence Field, a popular spot in the park. On the afternoon of June 14th, the group decided to play a prank on the adults. Dennis and his brother planned to jump out from behind some bushes to scare them. Dennis's brother and a friend went one way, while Dennis went the other. The children sprang out as planned, but Dennis never appeared. In just a matter of minutes, Dennis had completely vanished. What followed was one of the most extensive and perplexing search operations in National Park Service history. Over the next week, around 1,400 searchers, including the National Guard and the Green Berets, scoured the dense forest, ravines, and rivers, but found no trace of Dennis. Search dogs could not pick up his scent, and the weather conditions turned for the worse, hampering the efforts. The case grew even stranger when a man from a nearby area reported seeing a strange sight on the afternoon of Dennis's disappearance. He and his family had been hiking in the area when they heard an enormous, sickening scream and then saw what appeared to be a wild man darting through the woods, carrying something on his shoulder. The man's description of the location matched the general direction where Dennis was last seen. Despite extensive efforts and countless theories, Dennis Martin's fate remains a mystery. No clothing, remains, or personal belongings were ever found. The official report concluded that Dennis likely succumbed to the elements, but many believe something far more sinister happened that day. The case remains a haunting reminder of how quickly and completely someone can vanish in the wild, leaving only questions and fear in their wake. 2. The mysterious case of Stephen Kubacki, 1978. Stephen Kubacki was a 23-year-old student at Hope College in Holland, Michigan, when he embarked on a solo cross-country skiing trip near Lake Michigan in February 1978. An experienced outdoorsman, Stephen planned to spend the day skiing and then return to his dorm. However, he never made it back, and what followed was a story that would baffle even the most seasoned investigators. When Stephen failed to return, a search party was quickly organized. His skis and poles were found near the shore of Lake Michigan, and his footprints led to the edge of the frozen lake. The tracks abruptly stopped, and there was no sign of where he had gone. It was as if Stephen had simply disappeared into thin air. The search was eventually called off, and Stephen was presumed dead, either having fallen into the lake or succumbed to the harsh winter conditions. 15 months later, in May 1979, Stephen reappeared. He was found in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, nearly 700 miles from where he had vanished. He was wearing clothes that were not his own, carrying a backpack filled with maps and hitchhiking signs, and had no memory of the past 15 months. Stephen claimed that he had regained consciousness in a field 20 miles from his father's house, with no idea how he got there. The story grew even more mysterious when Stephen recounted that he had no memory of what had happened after his disappearance. He had no idea how he traveled such a vast distance or where he had been during those 15 months. Even stranger, Stephen seemed unfazed by the ordeal, declining to seek medical or psychological help, and simply went back to his normal life as if nothing had happened. To this day, the case of Stephen Kubacki remains one of the most bizarre and unsettling disappearances in modern history. The lack of answers, combined with Stephen's own indifference to his lost time, leaves a chilling sense of unease. How did he survive? Where was he during those 15 months? And perhaps most unsettling of all, why doesn't he remember? 3. The vanishing of Stacey Ann Arras, 1981. Stacey Ann Arras was a 14-year-old girl who went missing while on a horseback riding trip with her father and a group of friends in Yosemite National Park. The group had set up camp at Sunrise High Sierra Camp, a remote location accessible only by trail, and were enjoying the stunning wilderness that Yosemite offers. On July 17, 1981, after arriving at the campsite, Stacey decided to take a short walk to a nearby lake to take some photographs. An elderly member of the group, who was feeling tired, accompanied her part of the way before sitting down to rest. Stacey continued on alone, and that was the last time anyone saw her. When Stacey failed to return, the group quickly became concerned. A search was launched almost immediately, but despite extensive efforts, no trace of Stacy was ever found. Not a single item of clothing, camera, or any other personal effects were discovered. It was as if Stacy had simply disappeared into thin air. One of the most perplexing aspects of Stacy's case is the lack of clues. The area where she vanished was heavily searched, and given the relatively short distance she had planned to walk, many believe it should have been impossible for her to get lost. The lake she was heading toward was only a few hundred yards away, and the terrain was not particularly difficult to navigate. To this day, the disappearance of Stacy Ann Arras remains one of Yosemite's most haunting mysteries. The case was eventually closed, but it continues to capture the imagination and fear of those who hear it. How could a young girl vanish so completely in a place where she should have been easily found? The unanswered questions leave a lingering sense of dread and the unsettling realization that even in the most familiar places, the unknown can be terrifyingly close. 4. The Enigma of Douglas Legg, 1971. Douglas Legg was an 8-year-old boy who disappeared in the vast and mysterious wilderness of the Adirondack Mountains in New York. In July 1971, Douglas was on a family outing at their summer camp near Santanoni Preserve, a sprawling and dense area of wilderness. On July 10th, the family decided to take a hike along a familiar trail. As they were about to set off, Douglas's uncle noticed some poison ivy nearby and asked Douglas to go back to the camp and change into long pants to avoid exposure. The camp was only about a half-mile away, and the trail was well-worn and easy to follow. Douglas, an experienced hiker despite his young age, set off toward the camp while the rest of the family waited. Minutes passed, then an hour, and Douglas never returned. The family began searching the area, calling out his name, but there was no response. Panic set in as they realized something was terribly wrong. A massive search effort was quickly organized, involving hundreds of volunteers, professional rescuers, bloodhounds, helicopters, and even soldiers. The search area covered miles of rugged terrain, but despite these exhaustive efforts, no trace of Douglas was ever found. What made the case even more baffling was the lack of any clear evidence. The bloodhounds picked up Douglas's scent, but lost it abruptly at a nearby swamp. There were no signs of struggle, no footprints, and no indication of where he might have gone. Some searchers reported hearing strange noises in the woods at night, but nothing came of it. The theories about what happened to Douglas range from him being taken by an animal to being abducted by someone familiar with the area. Others suggest he might have fallen into an unseen crevice or gotten lost in a hidden cave. Yet, none of these theories explain the complete and utter disappearance of the boy. The case remains unsolved, and the mystery of what happened to Douglas Legg continues to haunt those who delve into the unknown. 5. The unsettling disappearance of Keith Reinhard, 1988. Keith Reinhard was a 49-year-old journalist and sports writer from Chicago who took a break from his life in the city to spend the summer in the small, secluded town of Silver Plume, Colorado. Keith had always been fascinated by the stories of the Old West, and Silver Plume, a former mining town with a population of around 200 people, seemed like the perfect place to find inspiration for the novel he was working on. Keith rented a small shop in town and began writing. He became particularly interested in the story of Tom Young, a man who had disappeared from Silver Plume the previous year. Tom had owned the same shop that Keith was renting, and his disappearance was a source of local intrigue. Despite being a small and remote town, Silver Plume seemed to hold many secrets, and Keith was determined to uncover them. On August 7, 1988, after spending the day writing and chatting with locals, Keith decided to go for a hike up Pendleton Mountain, a nearby peak he had been eager to explore. He told a friend he would be back by evening, but when night fell and Keith hadn't returned, concern grew. A search was launched, but despite extensive efforts, Keith was never found. His disappearance was eerily similar to that of Tom Young, who had also gone missing after venturing into the mountains. Tom's remains were eventually found, along with those of his dog, with a bullet hole in his skull, an apparent suicide. However, Keith's body has never been recovered, and his fate remains a mystery. What adds to the eeriness of the case is that Keith had written extensively about Tom Young in his novel, even exploring the idea of a person disappearing without a trace. Some believe that Keith's fascination with Tom's disappearance may have led him to an encounter with the same mysterious force or person that took Tom's life. Others suggest a more supernatural explanation, pointing to the strange history and haunting atmosphere of Silver Plume. To this day, Keith Reinhardt's disappearance remains unsolved. Was it a tragic accident, foul play, or something far more inexplicable? The town of Silver Plume, with its dark history and unsettling mysteries, continues to be a place where the past seems to linger and where some stories may never be fully told. 6. The strange vanishing of Paula Jen Weldon, 1946. Paula Jen Weldon was an 18-year-old sophomore at Bennington College in Vermont when she went missing under baffling circumstances. On December 1, 1946, Paula decided to go for a hike on the Long Trail, a popular hiking route that stretches through the Green Mountains of Vermont. It was a Sunday afternoon, and Paula told her roommate she was going for a long walk, but didn't specify where. Paula was last seen on the trail by a group of hikers who noticed her wearing a bright red coat as she walked into the woods alone. Darkness fell, and temperatures dropped, but Paula didn't return. When she didn't show up for her Monday classes, the alarm was raised. A massive search ensued, involving hundreds of volunteers, police, and even the FBI. Despite the extensive efforts, no trace of Paula was ever found. Not a single item of clothing, no footprints, and no signs of a struggle, nothing. The searchers were baffled by how a young woman could vanish so completely in an area that had been thoroughly searched. Theories about Paula's disappearance range from an accidental fall or hypothermia to more sinister possibilities like abduction or murder. Some locals believed she may have fallen victim to foul play by someone familiar with the area, while others speculated that she may have chosen to disappear and start a new life elsewhere. Adding to the mystery, several other people had gone missing in the Bennington area in the years surrounding Paula's disappearance, leading to speculation about a possible serial killer or some unknown force in the region. The case also sparked widespread interest and fear, leading to the creation of the Vermont State Police, which was established in part due to the failure of the local authorities to solve Paula's case. To this day, Paula Jen Weldon's disappearance remains one of New England's most enduring mysteries. The Long Trail, once a place of beauty and solitude, now carries a shadowy legacy, with hikers and locals alike haunted by the story of the young woman who walked into the woods and was never seen again. 7. The disappearance of Alfred Beilharz, 1938. In July 1938, 5-year-old Alfred Beilharz and his family were enjoying a camping trip in Rocky Mountain National Park, Colorado. They had been camping at the Fall River Lodge, a popular destination for families, and on July 3rd, they decided to hike along the Roaring River to the nearby Estes Park. At one point, the family crossed the river by hopping across the rocks. Alfred was with them, but when they reached the other side, he was gone. His parents initially thought he had fallen behind and was just out of sight, but after searching the area for some time, they realized something was terribly wrong. Alfred had vanished without a trace. A massive search operation was launched, involving park rangers, volunteers, and bloodhounds. Despite combing the area for days, they found no trace of the boy. The river was searched thoroughly, and the surrounding woods were scoured, but there was no sign of Alfred, no clothing, footprints, or any indication of what might have happened to him. The case grew even stranger when a couple hiking in the park reported seeing a small boy standing on a high ridge called Devil's Nest, nearly 6 miles away from where Alfred disappeared. They described the boy as being in a dazed state, staring out over the landscape before suddenly turning and walking out of sight. The ridge was so remote and inaccessible that the idea of a 5-year-old boy reaching it on his own seemed impossible. However, by the time searchers reached the area, there was no sign of Alfred. Theories about Alfred's disappearance range from him being abducted to falling into an unseen crevice to more supernatural explanations involving the strange history of the Rocky Mountains. Despite the exhaustive search and numerous theories, no trace of Alfred Beilharz has ever been found, and his disappearance remains one of the most baffling and heartbreaking mysteries in the history of the park. 8. The vanishing of Aaron Hedges, 2014. Aaron Hedges, a 38-year-old experienced outdoorsman from Montana, disappeared under mysterious circumstances in the Crazy Mountains, a rugged and remote area known for its difficult terrain and unpredictable weather. In September 2014, Aaron and two of his friends embarked on an elk hunting trip in the mountains. The group had stashed some supplies at a remote location called Campfire Lake earlier in the year and planned to use it as a base for their hunt. On September 5th, Aaron decided to separate from his friends to head toward the cache and retrieve additional supplies. The trail was familiar to him, and he was well equipped for the journey. However, as the day progressed, Aaron didn't return, and his friends became concerned. Search efforts began immediately. Aaron's friends and local authorities combed the area, but days turned into weeks with no sign of him. The search was hindered by rough terrain and worsening weather conditions, but what they found only deepened the mystery. Aaron's boots were discovered near a remote area of the mountains, along with a fire ring that seemed to suggest he had spent the night there. Nearby, they found his bow, a backpack, and some food. Strangely, the area where his belongings were found was miles away from the route he should have taken, and the trail to it was extremely difficult, even for an experienced hiker. Months later, in June 2015, more of Aaron's belongings were found nearly 15 miles away from his last known location. Even more disturbing, his remains were eventually discovered not far from where his boots had been found, almost a year after his disappearance. The area where his body was discovered had been searched previously, leading to speculation that either he had somehow moved there after the initial search or that he had been missed by searchers in the dense underbrush. The circumstances surrounding Aaron's disappearance remain puzzling. Why did he abandon his boots and gear in such a remote area? How did he end up so far off his intended path? Theories range from disorientation and hypothermia to the possibility of foul play, but no definitive answers have been found. The Crazy Mountains, with their ominous name and treacherous landscapes, hold their secrets close, and Aaron Hedges' disappearance is one more unsolved mystery in a place where nature's unpredictability reigns. 9. The disappearance of Jared Atadero, 1999. 3-year-old Jared Atadero vanished while hiking with a group of friends and family in the Comanche Peak Wilderness near Powder Canyon, Colorado, in October 1999. Jared's father, Alan Atadero, owned a small resort nearby, and the hiking trip was intended to be a fun outing for the children and their chaperones. Jared was described as a happy, adventurous child who loved being outdoors. On the morning of October 2nd, the group set out on the Big South Trail, a scenic but rugged path that winds through the Colorado wilderness. At some point during the hike, Jared ran ahead of the group and out of sight. The adults called for him, but Jared didn't respond. They quickly realized that he was missing and began searching the area, but he was nowhere to be found. A massive search effort was launched, involving search and rescue teams, volunteers, and even the National Guard. For days, they combed the area, but no trace of Jared was found. The search was called off after about a week, leaving his family devastated and without answers. The case took a disturbing turn in 2003 when two hikers discovered a child's skull and some clothing on a steep, rocky slope several miles from where Jared had disappeared. DNA testing confirmed that the remains belonged to Jared. However, the location where the remains were found raised more questions than answers. The area was so remote and difficult to reach that it seemed impossible for a 3-year-old to have climbed there on his own. Even more unsettling, Jared's clothing was found in a condition that baffled investigators. His shoes were nearly pristine, as if they had been carefully placed rather than subjected to the elements for years. His pants were inside out, and the sweatshirt had no rips or tears, suggesting they had been removed rather than torn off by an animal. These details led to a variety of theories, ranging from a tragic accident to more sinister possibilities, but no definitive explanation has ever been found. Jared Atadero's disappearance remains one of the most haunting missing persons cases in Colorado's history. The mystery of how he ended up in such an inaccessible place and what happened during the time he was missing continues to weigh heavily on those who search for answers. The rugged wilderness that Jared loved so much became the final chapter in a story that still has no clear resolution. 10. The disappearance of Pravdeep Shron, 2013. Pravdeep Shron, a 25-year-old Canadian military reservist and law student, disappeared while hiking in the rugged snowy mountains of New South Wales, Australia, in May 2013. Prabdeep had travelled to Australia as part of a global trip and had a deep love for the outdoors, making the trek into Kosciuszko National Park a natural choice for him. On May 13, 2013, Prabdeep set out on what was supposed to be a day hike, planning to summit Mount Kosciuszko, the highest peak in Australia. He left his rental car at the Charlotte Pass, a popular starting point for hikes in the area. However, when he didn't return to his car by the expected time, the alarm was raised. A massive search operation ensued, covering vast areas of the park. Despite the extensive efforts, which included helicopters, ground teams, and even thermal imaging, no trace of Prabdeep was ever found. The search was made even more challenging by the harsh and unpredictable weather conditions, with snow and freezing temperatures hampering efforts. What made the case particularly mysterious was that Prabdeep was an experienced hiker and military trained, so he was well prepared for the challenges of the wilderness. His disappearance seemed to defy logic, as no evidence, no gear, clothing, or remains was ever discovered. Theories about his fate include the possibility of an accident, such as falling into a crevice or getting caught in a snowstorm, or even foul play, but no definitive conclusion has been reached. In the years since his disappearance, Prabdeep's family has continued to search for answers, even offering a substantial reward for any information leading to his discovery. Despite these efforts, the snowy mountains have kept their secret, and Prabdeep Shrawn's case remains an open and haunting mystery. A reminder of how even the most prepared individuals can vanish without a trace in the wild. 11. The vanishing of Timothy Barnes, 1988. Timothy Barnes was a 23-year-old man who disappeared under mysterious circumstances while camping in the dense forests of the Sierra Nevada mountains in California. Timothy was an avid outdoorsman, known for his love of nature and his experience in the wilderness. On the weekend of October 15, 1988, he set out on a solo camping trip in the Plumas National Forest, a place he had visited numerous times before. Timothy was last seen by a group of hikers who reported that he seemed in good spirits and well prepared for his excursion. He planned to camp near Feather River, a remote area deep within the forest, and return home by Sunday. When he failed to show up for work the following Monday, his friends and family grew concerned and reported him missing. A search party was quickly organized involving local law enforcement, search and rescue teams, and volunteers. For days, they scoured the forest, but what they found only deepened the mystery. Timothy's campsite was discovered, but it looked as if it had been abandoned suddenly. His tent was intact, with his backpack, cooking gear, and food supplies neatly arranged inside. However, there was no sign of Timothy himself. Even more perplexing was the discovery of his wallet, keys, and hiking boots just a short distance away from the campsite. The boots were placed side by side, as if carefully removed, which seemed odd given the rough terrain. The searchers were baffled. Why would Timothy leave his boots behind in such a remote area? There were no tracks, no signs of struggle, and no clues to indicate what had happened to him. Despite extensive searches that continued for weeks, Timothy Barnes was never found. Theories about his disappearance range from him suffering an accident or a sudden medical emergency to more unsettling possibilities like an encounter with a wild animal or foul play. Some locals believe the forest itself holds dark secrets, pointing to the many other unexplained disappearances in the Sierra Nevada region. To this day, the disappearance of Timothy Barnes remains unsolved. The forest where he vanished has reclaimed his campsite, and the mystery of what happened to this experienced outdoorsman continues to haunt those who search for answers in the wilderness. 12. The unexplained disappearance of Loria Bible and Ashley Freeman, 1999. Loria Bible and Ashley Freeman, both 16 years old, vanished under chilling circumstances from Ashley's home in Welch, Oklahoma, on December 30, 1999. The night began as a typical sleepover, with Loria staying at Ashley's house to celebrate Ashley's birthday. The girls were close friends, and their families were familiar with each other, making the sleepover a common occurrence. In the early hours of December 31st, a fire broke out in the Freeman home, quickly reducing the structure to ashes. When firefighters arrived, they discovered the body of Ashley's mother, Kathy Freeman, who had been shot in the head before the fire started. Initially, it was believed that Ashley's father, Danny Freeman, was responsible for the crime and that he had fled with the two girls. However, as the investigation unfolded, it became clear that something far more sinister had occurred. The following day, while combing through the rubble, investigators discovered Danny Freeman's body. He had also been shot in the head, ruling him out as the perpetrator. But there was no sign of Loria or Ashley. The girls had vanished without a trace, leaving behind a scene of horror and confusion. Despite an extensive investigation and numerous leads, the whereabouts of Loria and Ashley remain unknown. Over the years, several theories have emerged, including the possibility that the girls were abducted by someone familiar with the Freeman family, or that they witnessed the murders and were taken to silence them. Some believe they may have been victims of human trafficking, while others speculate that they were killed shortly after being taken. In 2018, a breakthrough in the case led to the arrest of 3 suspects believed to be involved in the murders and the girls' disappearance. However, the exact details of what happened that night remain murky, and the bodies of Loria Bible and Ashley Freeman have never been found. The case remains open, and the haunting mystery of what happened to the 2 teenage girls continues to weigh heavily on the community of Welch, Oklahoma. 13. The bizarre disappearance of Chris Kremers and Lizanne Froon, 2014. Chris Kremers, 21, and Lizanne Froon, 22, were 2 Dutch students who disappeared while hiking in Panama's Bocaid region in April 2014. The pair had traveled to Panama to volunteer at a local school and enjoy the beauty of Central America. On April 1, 2014, they set out for a hike on the Pianista Trail, a popular route leading into the lush jungle. The 2 young women were never seen alive again. When they failed to return to their host family's home, a search was launched, initially focusing on the trail they had set out on. Despite the efforts of local authorities, volunteers, and even specialized search and rescue teams from the Netherlands, the dense jungle yielded no clues. Then, 10 weeks after their disappearance, a local woman discovered a blue backpack belonging to Lizanne Froon on the bank of a river, miles away from where the girls had been hiking. Inside the backpack were their belongings, including 2 phones, a camera, and both of their passports. The condition of the items was puzzling. Despite being in the jungle for weeks, the backpack and its contents were relatively dry and undamaged. The phones provided more disturbing clues. The girls had made multiple attempts to call emergency services, but due to the lack of signal in the area, the calls never went through. The last call attempt was made 10 days after their disappearance, suggesting they had survived for at least that long in the jungle. Additionally, several photos were taken during their hike, showing them happy and relaxed. However, on the 8th day, a series of strange, nighttime photos were found on the camera, including one of the back of Chris's head, which appeared to show an injury. Further investigations led to the discovery of bone fragments belonging to both Chris and Lizanne scattered along the riverbank near where the backpack was found. The cause of death remains unknown, with some suggesting that the girls succumbed to the elements, while others believe foul play was involved. The discovery of the bones raised more questions than answers, and the circumstances of their deaths remain a dark and unsettling mystery. To this day, the disappearance of Chris Kremers and Lizanne Froon is shrouded in mystery. The jungles of Panama, once a place of beauty and adventure, have become a symbol of the inexplicable and the unknown, leaving their families and investigators to wonder what truly happened in those dark, dense woods. 14. The disappearance of Bobby Bizup, 1958. Bobby Bizup was a 10-year-old boy with a hearing impairment who vanished from a Catholic boys' camp in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado in 1958. Bobby was attending Camp Street Malo, a popular summer camp near the base of Mount Meeker. On August 15th, while on a hike with other campers and counselors, Bobby got separated from the group and was never seen again. Despite his hearing impairment, Bobby was described as an active and happy child who loved the outdoors. The camp counselors quickly realized he was missing and immediately began searching the area. However, the rugged terrain and dense forest made the search difficult, and Bobby's small size and inability to hear well compounded the challenges. A massive search operation was launched, involving hundreds of volunteers, professional searchers, and even the National Guard. They scoured the mountains, valleys, and creeks, but there was no trace of Bobby. The search was called off after a week, leaving his family and the camp staff devastated. A year later, a camper discovered a piece of Bobby's hearing aid near a stream about 2 miles from where he was last seen. Further searches in the area led to the discovery of a few scattered bones and pieces of clothing, confirmed to belong to Bobby. The official explanation was that he had likely wandered off, gotten lost, and succumbed to the elements. However, the location of the remains was puzzling, as it was in an area that had been thoroughly searched the previous year. Some locals speculated that Bobby might have fallen victim to an animal attack or even foul play, but no definitive evidence has ever emerged. The case remains a haunting reminder of how quickly and completely a child can disappear in the wilderness, leaving behind only fragments and unanswered questions. The disappearance of Bobby Bizup is one of the many eerie and unexplained cases that have occurred in the Rocky Mountains, a place where beauty and danger coexist, and where the wilderness can be as unforgiving as it is enchanting. 15. The disappearance of Maura Murray, 2004. Maura Murray was a 21-year-old nursing student at the University of Massachusetts Amherst when she disappeared under mysterious circumstances in February 2004. On the afternoon of February 9th, Maura emailed her professors and work supervisors, telling them she was taking a week off due to a family emergency. However, there was no family emergency, and Maura's actions in the days leading up to her disappearance remain unclear. That evening, Maura packed her car and drove north toward the White Mountains of New Hampshire. At around 7:30 p.m., she lost control of her car and crashed on a rural road in Haverhill, New Hampshire. A passing motorist stopped to offer help, but Maura declined, saying she had already called for roadside assistance. The motorist drove on, but reported the accident to the police. When the police arrived, they found Maura's car locked and abandoned, with no sign of her. Inside the car, they found her belongings, including clothes, toiletries, a college textbook, and a bottle of wine. However, Maura herself had vanished without a trace. A massive search was launched, involving police, search dogs, helicopters, and volunteers. The search covered miles of wilderness, but no trace of Maura was ever found. The case became a national sensation, with numerous theories emerging over the years. Some believe Maura may have staged her own disappearance to start a new life, while others suspect foul play. There are also theories that Maura may have succumbed to the elements after wandering into the woods, or that she was abducted by someone who passed by after the accident. Despite extensive media coverage, countless searches, and numerous leads, the fate of Maura Murray remains one of the most perplexing and haunting mysteries in modern American history. The White Mountains, with their rugged beauty and treacherous terrain, have long been a place where people seek solace and adventure. But for Maura Murray, they may have become a place of no return, leaving her family and the public to wonder what really happened that cold February night. 16. The disappearance of Brandon Swanson, 2008. Brandon Swanson was a 19-year-old college student from Marshall, Minnesota, who disappeared on the night of May 14, 2008, under circumstances that have baffled investigators and haunted his family ever since. Brandon was returning home after celebrating the end of the spring semester with friends. He had attended a community college in Canby, Minnesota, and was driving back to his parents' house in Marshall, a roughly 30-mile journey. At around 2:00 a.m., Brandon's car veered off the road into a ditch on a rural gravel road near the town of Taunton, Minnesota. Uninjured, he called his parents for help, explaining that he wasn't sure exactly where he was but believed he was near Lind, a small town about 10 minutes from his home. His parents immediately set out to find him, staying on the phone with Brandon as they tried to locate him. Despite Brandon's assurances that he could see lights in the distance, likely from a nearby town, his parents couldn't find him. Growing increasingly frustrated, Brandon decided to leave his car and walk towards the lights, which he thought might be Lind. As they continued talking, Brandon suddenly exclaimed, "Oh shit," and the call abruptly ended. That was the last anyone heard from him. Despite repeated attempts, his parents couldn't reach him again, and the exact location of his final words remains unknown. A massive search effort was launched, involving local law enforcement, volunteers, and search and rescue teams. Brandon's car was eventually found in a ditch along a gravel road, far from where he had told his parents he was. The search area expanded to cover miles of rural countryside, but no trace of Brandon was ever found. Several strange aspects of the case have fueled speculation and theories. The exact meaning of Brandon's last words remains a mystery. Some believe he may have fallen into a nearby river or creek, as the area has several waterways. Others suggest foul play, although no evidence has ever been found to support this theory. Despite extensive searches, including the use of cadaver dogs and even the involvement of psychics, Brandon Swanson's fate remains unknown. His disappearance is a chilling reminder of how quickly someone can vanish, even while on the phone with loved ones, and how vast and unforgiving rural landscapes can be. 17. The disappearance of Leah Roberts, 2000. Leah Roberts was a 23-year-old college student from North Carolina who disappeared in March 2000 under mysterious circumstances that have puzzled investigators and her family for over 2 decades. Leah had recently lost both of her parents and was struggling to find direction in her life. In March 2000, without telling anyone, she packed up her Jeep Cherokee, left her home in Durham, North Carolina, and drove west, intending to explore the country and possibly start a new chapter in her life. Leah's journey took her across the United States, with her final destination believed to be Washington State, where she had a particular interest in the life and writings of Jack Kerouac. She was last seen at a gas station in Brooks, Oregon, on March 13, 2000. After that, Leah vanished. On March 18, 2000, Leah's Jeep was found abandoned and wrecked in a remote area of the Mount Baker National Forest in Washington. The vehicle had crashed down an embankment and was hidden from the road, leading investigators to believe it might have been there for several days. Inside the Jeep, Leah's belongings were scattered, including a large sum of cash, her passport, and clothes. There were no signs of Leah, no blood, and no evidence of a struggle. The scene raised numerous questions. The Jeep's engine had been tampered with, indicating someone might have tried to disable it after the crash. The car's valuables being left untouched suggested that robbery was not the motive. A blanket had been hung over one of the windows, as if someone had been sleeping inside the car after the accident. Search efforts in the surrounding forest yielded no trace of Leah. Investigators considered various possibilities, including that Leah had walked away from the crash site and succumbed to the elements, or that she had met with foul play. However, the remote location of the crash and the lack of any signs of a struggle or violence deepened the mystery. Over the years, several tips and possible sightings have been reported, but none have led to Leah. Her family continues to search for answers, holding out hope that she may still be alive. The disappearance of Leah Roberts remains one of the most perplexing and unsettling mysteries in the Pacific Northwest, a place where the wilderness holds its secrets tightly. 18. The mysterious disappearance of Michael Braden Forget, 2015. Michael Braden Forget was a 22-year-old man from Kansas who disappeared under strange circumstances while on a trip to the Ozark Mountains in Missouri in October 2015. Braden was an experienced hiker and outdoorsman with a deep love for nature. He had recently decided to take a solo trip to the Ozarks, a region known for its dense forests, rugged terrain, and beautiful landscapes. On October 24th, Braden set out on a hike from his campsite near the Devil's Backbone Wilderness area, a remote and challenging part of the Ozarks. He left a note for his family, saying he planned to be back by nightfall. However, when Braden failed to return, his family became worried and contacted local authorities. A search was launched involving park rangers, volunteers, and even a specialized search and rescue team from Arkansas. The searchers were confident that Braden, with his outdoor skills, would be found quickly. However, days passed with no sign of him. The search area was expanded to cover miles of difficult terrain, but the only clue they found was a water bottle believed to belong to Braden near a stream deep in the wilderness. The case took a disturbing turn when one of the searchers reported seeing a figure in the distance, matching Braden's description. The figure appeared to be walking through the forest, but when the searcher called out, the figure turned and disappeared into the trees. Despite following the direction in which the figure had gone, the searchers found nothing. As the days turned into weeks, hope began to fade. The search was eventually called off, and Braden was presumed dead, likely having succumbed to the elements or an accident. However, no body was ever found, and the mystery of what happened to him remains unresolved. The disappearance of Braden Fugate is one of many unsettling cases in the Ozarks, a place known for its beauty and its treacherous, unforgiving wilderness. The stories of those who vanish in these remote areas serve as a reminder of how vast and perilous the natural world can be, and how quickly and completely someone can disappear without a trace. 19. The disappearance of Asha Degree, 2000. Asha Degree was a 9-year-old girl from Shelby, North Carolina, who disappeared under mysterious and chilling circumstances on February 14, 2000. Asha was a quiet, well-behaved child, known for her love of school, basketball, and reading. She lived with her parents and older brother in a small home, and her family was described as close-knit and loving. On the night of February 13th, Asha went to bed at her usual time after spending the day at church and celebrating Valentine's Day early with her family. Around 2:30 a.m., her father checked on her and her brother, finding both children asleep in their beds. But sometime between 3:30 a.m. and 4:00 a.m., Asha packed a backpack with some clothes, her favorite stuffed animal, and her basketball uniform, and left the house on foot in the pouring rain. Several motorists reported seeing Asha walking along Highway 18, about a mile from her home, around 4:00 a.m. One driver even turned around and tried to approach her, but Asha ran into the woods and disappeared. When her parents discovered her missing later that morning, they were shocked and confused. Asha had never run away before, and there was no indication of any problems at home or school. A massive search was launched involving local law enforcement, the FBI, and hundreds of volunteers. The searchers combed the woods near where Asha was last seen, but found nothing. Days later, Asha's backpack was discovered in a nearby shed, along with some candy wrappers and a pencil. The items were later confirmed to belong to Asha, but the trail went cold after that. Despite numerous tips and leads over the years, Asha Degree's fate remains unknown. Her case has been featured on national television shows, and her family continues to hold out hope that she may still be alive. The mystery of why a 9-year-old girl would leave her home in the middle of the night and disappear without a trace has puzzled investigators for decades. Asha's disappearance is one of the most disturbing and perplexing missing persons cases in North Carolina's history. The idea that a young child could vanish so completely, with no clear explanation, is a nightmare that haunts her family and the community to this day. 20. The strange disappearance of Joe Keller, 2015. Joe Keller was a 19-year-old college student from Cleveland, Tennessee, who disappeared while on a cross-country road trip with friends in July 2015. Joe was an athletic, adventurous young man who loved the outdoors. He and his friends were visiting a remote ranch in Conegos County, Colorado, a vast and rugged area known for its mountains, forests, and wildlife. On July 23, 2015, Joe and his friends decided to go for a run in the mountains near the ranch. Joe was a fast runner and soon outpaced his friends, disappearing from their sight as he headed up a steep trail. When his friends returned to the ranch hours later and Joe was not there, they assumed he had gotten lost and would find his way back soon. But as night fell and Joe still hadn't returned, concern grew and a search was launched. Local law enforcement, search and rescue teams, and volunteers scoured the area, but there was no sign of Joe. The search was complicated by the rugged terrain, thick forest, and rapidly changing weather conditions. Helicopters, drones, and search dogs were brought in, but days passed with no trace of the young man. The case took an eerie turn when a hiker reported hearing someone yelling for help in the area where Joe had disappeared, but despite an immediate search, nothing was found. Weeks later, Joe's body was discovered by a search and rescue team in a remote, steep ravine about a mile from where he was last seen. The location was so difficult to access that it raised questions about how Joe ended up there. An autopsy revealed no signs of foul play, and Joe's death was ruled an accident, likely caused by a fall. However, the circumstances of his disappearance and the strange, isolated location where his body was found have led to speculation about what really happened. Some believe Joe may have become disoriented or injured and wandered into the ravine, while others suggest more sinister possibilities. Joe Keller's disappearance and death remain a mystery, a tragic reminder of how quickly an adventure in the wilderness can turn into a nightmare. The mountains of Colorado, with their beauty and danger, have claimed many lives over the years, and Joe's story is one of the most haunting in recent memory. 21. The mysterious disappearance of David Paulides, 2015. David Paulides is not the name of a missing person, but rather that of a former police officer and researcher who has spent years documenting strange disappearances in national parks and wilderness areas, leading to the creation of the Missing 411 phenomenon. Paulides has written several books on the topic, detailing cases where people have vanished under inexplicable circumstances, often in areas known for their rugged terrain and isolated locations. Paulides' work focuses on patterns he has identified in these disappearances, such as people going missing near bodies of water, those with some form of disability, or cases where the person was last seen wearing brightly colored clothing. Despite extensive searches, many of these individuals are never found, or their remains are discovered in places that had already been thoroughly searched. One of the more chilling aspects of these cases is the suddenness with which people disappear. In many instances, individuals vanish without a trace, even when they are in close proximity to others. This has led to speculation about whether something more sinister or supernatural is at play, although Paulides himself does not offer specific explanations, instead allowing the strange nature of the cases to speak for itself. The missing 411 cases have garnered significant attention and have been the subject of documentaries and television programs. These disappearances have occurred across the United States and even in other countries, leading to a growing sense of unease about the true nature of these mysteries. While David Paulides himself is not missing, his research has shone a light on hundreds of people who have disappeared under circumstances that defy explanation. His work continues to provoke debate and discussion as more and more people become aware of these haunting stories of individuals who have vanished, leaving behind only questions and fear. 22. The disappearance of Zed Quinn, 2000. Zed Quinn was an 18-year-old from Asheville, North Carolina, who vanished on January 2, 2000, under circumstances that have puzzled investigators and the community ever since. Zed was a responsible and well-liked young man who worked at a local Walmart while saving money for college. On the evening of his disappearance, he had plans to look at a used car with a friend and co-worker, Robert Jason Owens. Zeb and Owens left Walmart together around 9:00 p.m., and they were last seen on security footage at a gas station, where Zeb purchased sodas. After leaving the gas station, Zeb reportedly received a page that appeared to upset him. He told Owens he needed to meet someone and abruptly drove off. This was the last confirmed sighting of Zed Quinn. When Zeb didn't show up for work the next day, his family reported him missing. Owens later told police that after they parted ways, Zeb's car had rear-ended his truck, but Zeb then apologized and drove away. Owens claimed he never saw Zeb again. The case took a bizarre turn 2 weeks later when Zeb's car, a Mazda Protege, was found abandoned in the parking lot of a local restaurant. The car had been left with its headlights on and a pair of lips drawn in lipstick on the back window. Inside the vehicle, police found a live puppy, several empty drink bottles, and a hotel keycard that did not belong to Zeb. Despite extensive searches and investigations, Zed Quinn has never been found, and his fate remains unknown. In 2017, Robert Jason Owens was charged with Zeb's murder, though his body has never been recovered, and Owens has not revealed what happened to him. The case remains one of the most perplexing and chilling mysteries in North Carolina's history. The strange circumstances surrounding Zeb's disappearance, the odd behavior before he vanished, the unusual condition in which his car was found, and the involvement of Owens, who later became known for other criminal activities, have led to numerous theories and speculation. Yet, over 2 decades later, Zed Quinn's family is still waiting for answers, and the mystery of what happened to him continues to haunt those who remember him. 23. The disappearance of the Jamison family, 2009. The Jamison family, Bobby, Sherilyn, and their 6-year-old daughter, Madison, disappeared in October 2009 under highly mysterious circumstances while looking at land for sale in the remote mountains of southeastern Oklahoma. The family was last seen alive on October 8th when they drove their pickup truck to a plot of land they were considering purchasing in the Sans Bois Mountains. A few days later, their abandoned truck was found by hunters on a dirt road near Red Oak, Oklahoma. Inside the truck were the Jamisons' wallets, cell phones, GPS, Sherilyn's purse, and the family's dog, which was malnourished but alive. Even more startling was the discovery of $32,000 in cash hidden under the driver's seat. The keys were still in the ignition, but there was no sign of the family. A massive search effort was launched, involving law enforcement, volunteers, and search dogs. Despite the thorough search, no trace of the Jamisons was found. The case baffled investigators, especially given the strange items found in the truck and the large amount of cash. 4 years later, in November 2013, the skeletal remains of Bobby, Sherilyn, and Madison were found by hunters less than 3 miles from where their truck had been discovered. The remains were so decomposed that the cause of death could not be determined, although the positioning of the bodies suggested they may have been lying side by side. Several theories have been proposed to explain the Jamison family's disappearance and deaths, ranging from a murder-suicide to foul play, possibly connected to drug trafficking or a cult. Some speculated that the family had fallen victim to a robbery gone wrong, while others pointed to the family's financial troubles and Bobby Jamison's recent erratic behavior. Adding to the mystery were reports that the family had been acting strangely in the months leading up to their disappearance, with Bobby and Sherilyn allegedly becoming increasingly paranoid and claiming to see spirits in their home. The discovery of a witch's Bible among Sherilyn's belongings and a series of unsettling messages found on her cell phone further fueled speculation about possible occult involvement. Despite these theories, no definitive answers have ever been found, and the case remains unsolved. The eerie circumstances surrounding the Jamison family's disappearance and the subsequent discovery of their remains in such a remote and isolated location continue to raise questions that may never be fully answered. 24. The vanishing of Brian Schaffer, 2006. Brian Schaffer was a 27-year-old medical student at Ohio State University who disappeared without a trace on the night of April 1, 2006. Under circumstances that have baffled investigators and left his family and friends desperate for answers. Brian was last seen at the Ugly Tuna Saloona, a bar in Columbus, Ohio, where he had been out celebrating the start of spring break with friends. Brian, described as a friendly and outgoing person, was seen on security cameras entering the bar around 1:15 a.m. He was later spotted talking to 2 women just outside the bar around 2:00 a.m. But after this encounter, Brian seemed to vanish into thin air. Despite the bar being crowded and multiple security cameras covering the exits, there is no footage of Brian leaving the bar. When his friends realized he was missing, they searched the area and called his cell phone, but there was no answer. Brian's car was still parked nearby, and his apartment showed no signs of disturbance. In the days and weeks that followed, a massive search was launched, involving police, friends, and volunteers, but no trace of Brian was ever found. The case became even more puzzling when it was revealed that Brian had recently lost his mother to cancer, and although he had been dealing with grief, he appeared to be looking forward to a planned vacation with his girlfriend, with whom he had discussed marriage. There was no indication that Brian was planning to disappear or that he was in any danger. Theories about Brian's disappearance range from accidental death, perhaps falling into an area under construction near the bar, to foul play, or even a voluntary disappearance. Some speculate that he might have been the victim of a robbery gone wrong or that he was abducted. However, the lack of evidence and the fact that Brian was never seen leaving the bar have made this case one of the most perplexing in recent history. Brian Schaffer's disappearance remains unsolved, and the case continues to capture public attention. His family, especially his father, Randy Schaffer, has never given up hope of finding answers, but as the years pass, the mystery only deepens. The disappearance of Brian Schaffer is a chilling reminder of how someone can simply vanish without a trace, leaving behind only questions and heartache. 25. The strange disappearance of Emma Filipoff, 2012. Emma Filipoff was a 26-year-old woman from Victoria, British Columbia, who disappeared on November 28, 2012, under mysterious circumstances that have left investigators and her family searching for answers. Emma had moved to Victoria from her hometown of Perth, Ontario, and was known for her artistic talents, love of nature, and free-spirited personality. However, in the months leading up to her disappearance, those close to her noticed a change in her behavior. Emma seemed increasingly anxious, paranoid, and withdrawn. On the evening of November 28th, Emma was seen standing barefoot outside the Empress Hotel in downtown Victoria. She was reportedly acting strangely, alternating between standing still and pacing, and appeared to be disoriented and confused. Concerned passers-by called the police, who arrived and spoke with Emma for about 45 minutes. After determining that she was not a danger to herself or others, the police left, and Emma walked away, disappearing into the night. Emma's disappearance was reported the next day when she failed to return to the women's shelter where she had been staying. Her van, which she had been living in, was found parked nearby, containing her belongings, including her laptop, passport, and some journals. However, there was no sign of Emma herself. A massive search effort was launched, involving police, volunteers, and Emma's family, who traveled to Victoria to help with the search. Despite extensive efforts, including the release of security footage showing Emma's last known movements, no trace of her has ever been found. Several strange and unsettling clues have emerged in the years since Emma's disappearance. Shortly after she vanished, a man in Vancouver reported to police that a woman matching Emma's description had approached him and asked for help. The man said he believed she was in distress, but by the time he realized who she might be, the woman was gone. Additionally, Emma's family has received reports of possible sightings of her in various locations across Canada, but none have been confirmed. The case remains open, and Emma's mother, Shelley Philippoff, has continued to search for her daughter, holding out hope that she may still be alive. The disappearance of Emma Philippoff is one of the most baffling and heartbreaking cases in recent Canadian history. The strange circumstances surrounding her final hours, combined with the lack of any definitive clues, have led to numerous theories but no answers. Emma's case remains a haunting mystery, a story of a young woman who vanished without a trace, leaving behind only questions and a family desperate for answers. 26. The disappearance of Teresa Butler, 2006. Teresa Butler was a 35-year-old mother of two who vanished from her home in Risco, Missouri, on January 25, 2006. The case is particularly unsettling due to the eerie circumstances surrounding her disappearance and the lack of any substantial leads or evidence. Teresa lived with her husband, Dale Butler, and their two young sons in a rural area. On the day she disappeared, Dale had left early for work, leaving Teresa alone with the children. When Dale returned home later that day, he found the house in disarray. The front door was unlocked, and Teresa's car was parked in the driveway, but she was nowhere to be found. Inside the house, there were several signs that something was wrong. The television and other electronic devices were missing, leading investigators to initially suspect a robbery. However, Teresa's purse, cell phone, and keys were still in the house, which was unusual for a robbery. Even more concerning, her children were found unharmed and unaware of what had happened. The local police and the Missouri State Highway Patrol launched an extensive search, but there was no sign of Teresa. The surrounding area, including nearby woods and fields, was scoured, but no clues were found. The case quickly went cold, with no suspects, no motive, and no evidence to indicate what had happened to her. In the days following her disappearance, there were strange and unsettling developments. 2 phone calls were made from Teresa's cell phone to numbers in neighboring towns, but when police traced the calls, they led to dead ends. The contents of the calls remain unknown, adding another layer of mystery to the case. Teresa Butler's disappearance remains unsolved. Over the years, her family has continued to search for answers, holding out hope that she might still be alive. The lack of evidence, combined with the eerie circumstances of her disappearance, has led to numerous theories, ranging from abduction to foul play by someone close to her. However, the truth remains elusive, and Teresa's case continues to haunt her family and the small community of Risco, Missouri. 27. The vanishing of Lars Mittank, 2014. Lars Mittank was a 28-year-old German tourist who disappeared under bizarre circumstances in July 2014 while on vacation in Bulgaria. Lars had traveled to the resort town of Varna on the Black Sea with a group of friends, intending to enjoy a week of sun, sea, and relaxation. However, the trip took a strange turn when Lars was involved in a minor altercation at a bar over a soccer game. The incident left him with an injured eardrum, and a local doctor advised him not to fly due to the injury. Lars's friends returned to Germany as planned, but he stayed behind to recover, booking a room at a local hotel near the airport. Over the next few days, Lars began exhibiting increasingly paranoid behavior, telling his mother over the phone that he felt he was being followed and that he feared for his life. He reportedly sent frantic text messages to his friends, asking them strange questions and claiming he was in danger. On July 8, 2014, Lars visited the Varna airport intending to fly home to Germany. However, he left the airport shortly after arriving, running out of the terminal in apparent panic. Security footage captured Lars sprinting across the parking lot, climbing a fence, and disappearing into the surrounding woods. This was the last confirmed sighting of him. Despite extensive searches by Bulgarian authorities, no trace of Lars has ever been found. The case has garnered international attention, with theories ranging from foul play to a psychological breakdown caused by his injury or medications. Some believe Lars may have become disoriented and succumbed to the elements, while others suspect he may have been abducted or met with foul play. The disappearance of Lars Mittank remains one of the most bizarre and unsettling missing persons cases in recent history. The footage of his frantic escape from the airport, combined with the lack of any evidence or leads, has left his family and investigators searching for answers that have yet to be found. The mystery of what happened to Lars Mittank continues to captivate and terrify those who hear his story. 28. The disappearance of Bryce Laspiza, 2013. Bryce Laspiza was a 19-year-old college student from California who disappeared under strange circumstances in August 2013, leaving behind a trail of unsettling clues but no answers. Bryce had been attending Sierra College in Rocklin, California, and was described as a bright and outgoing young man. However, in the weeks leading up to his disappearance, his behavior began to change. He started drinking heavily, broke up with his girlfriend, and seemed increasingly troubled. On August 28, 2013, Bryce abruptly left the college and began driving south towards his parents' home in Laguna Niguel, California. Along the way, he called his mother, telling her he had something important to discuss with her, but didn't provide any details. Over the next several hours, Bryce's movements became increasingly erratic. He was seen sitting in his car for hours near a rest area in Buttonwillow, California, and he refused offers of help from concerned passers-by. Eventually, Bryce's car was found overturned near Castaic Lake, just outside Los Angeles. The car had crashed down an embankment, but Bryce was nowhere to be found. Inside the vehicle, investigators found his wallet, phone, and other personal belongings, but there was no sign of Bryce himself. Search efforts around the lake and the surrounding wilderness yielded no trace of him. The circumstances of Bryce's disappearance have led to numerous theories. Some believe he may have suffered from a mental health crisis and wandered off into the wilderness. Others suggest he may have staged his own disappearance, though there is no evidence to support this. The lack of any definitive clues has made this case particularly haunting. Bryce Laspiza's disappearance remains unsolved, and his family continues to search for answers. The strange behavior leading up to his disappearance, combined with the mysterious circumstances of the car crash, has left investigators baffled. The case is a chilling reminder of how quickly a young life can take a sudden and tragic turn, leaving behind only questions and heartache. 29. The mysterious disappearance of Henry McCabe, 2015. Henry McCabe was a 32-year-old man from Mounds View, Minnesota, who vanished under bizarre and unsettling circumstances on September 7, 2015. Henry, a Liberian immigrant and father of two, was last seen by friends after a night out at a club in the Twin Cities. His disappearance became particularly disturbing due to a strange voicemail he left for his wife in the early hours of the morning he went missing. According to reports, Henry's friends dropped him off at a gas station around 2:00 a.m. after a night of drinking. From there, Henry was supposed to take a cab home, but he never arrived. Later that morning, his wife received a voicemail from Henry's phone that lasted over 2 minutes. The message was filled with strange noises, including what sounded like growls, moans, and screams, followed by a final voice saying, "Stop it." This chilling voicemail became a key piece of evidence in the investigation. A massive search was launched involving police, volunteers, and search and rescue teams. Weeks later, on November 2, 2015, Henry's body was discovered in Rush Lake, a few miles from where he was last seen. The condition of his body made it difficult to determine the cause of death, and the coroner ruled the death as undetermined. There were no obvious signs of trauma or foul play, further deepening the mystery. The strange circumstances surrounding Henry's disappearance and the disturbing voicemail have led to numerous theories, ranging from foul play to supernatural explanations. Some believe Henry may have been the victim of an attack, possibly even an animal attack, while others suggest he may have drowned accidentally after wandering into the lake. However, the lack of clear evidence and the eerie nature of the voicemail have made this case particularly unsettling. Henry McCabe's disappearance and death remain unsolved, and his family continues to seek answers. The case is a chilling reminder of how quickly a night out can turn into a nightmare, leaving behind only a series of strange and terrifying clues that may never be fully understood. 30. The disappearance of Matthew Green, 2013. Matthew Green was a 39-year-old high school math teacher from Pennsylvania who disappeared in July 2013 while on a solo hiking trip in California's Sierra Nevada mountains. Matthew was an experienced outdoorsman, known for his love of climbing and exploring remote wilderness areas. He had traveled to the eastern Sierra region to climb several peaks with friends, but after experiencing car trouble, he decided to stay behind in the town of Mammoth Lakes while his friends returned home. On July 17, 2013, Matthew called a repair shop to check on the status of his car, which had needed repairs. That evening, he spoke with his parents, telling them that he planned to hike the next day. This was the last time anyone heard from him. When Matthew didn't check in or return to pick up his car, his friends and family became concerned and reported him missing. A search was launched in the rugged and remote wilderness areas around Mammoth Lakes, but no trace of Matthew was found. His car, camping gear, and personal belongings were all left behind, and there was no indication of where he might have gone. The Sierra Nevada mountains are known for their difficult terrain and unpredictable weather, making the search challenging. Despite extensive efforts by search and rescue teams, including helicopters, ground searchers, and volunteers, Matthew's disappearance remains a mystery. Some speculate that he may have had an accident while hiking, possibly falling into a crevice or being caught in a rock slide. Others suggest he may have intentionally disappeared, though there is no evidence to support this theory. Matthew Green's disappearance is one of the many haunting cases of experienced hikers who have vanished in the wilderness without a trace. The Sierra Nevada mountains, with their stunning beauty and treacherous landscapes, have claimed many lives over the years, and Matthew's case serves as a reminder of the dangers that can lurk in even the most familiar and beloved outdoor settings. His family continues to search for answers, but the mystery of what happened to Matthew Green remains unsolved. You said. 31. The disappearance of Amy Bechtel, 1997. Amy Bechtel was a 24-year-old woman from Lander, Wyoming, who vanished on July 24, 1997, while out for a run in the Shoshone National Forest. An accomplished athlete and aspiring Olympic runner, Amy had moved to Lander with her husband, Steve Bechtel, to pursue their shared passion for outdoor activities like rock climbing, hiking, and running. On the day of her disappearance, Amy had spent the morning running errands around town. She then planned to scout a course for an upcoming 10K race she was organizing. Her last confirmed sighting was at a local photo store around 2:30 p.m. After that, she headed toward the Loop Road, a scenic byway in the Shoshone National Forest, intending to run the course she was mapping out. When Emmy didn't return home by the evening, Steve became worried and contacted friends and local authorities. A massive search effort was launched, involving law enforcement, volunteers, and search and rescue teams, but no trace of Emmy was found. Her car was discovered parked along the Loop Road, with her keys and other belongings inside, but there were no signs of a struggle or clues to indicate what had happened. Over the years, several theories have emerged regarding Amy's disappearance. Some believe she may have been abducted by a stranger while running, while others suggest she might have had an accident or fallen victim to a wild animal in the rugged wilderness. Suspicion also briefly fell on Steve Bechtel, her husband, due to inconsistencies in his statements, but he was never charged, and he has always maintained his innocence. Despite extensive searches, including efforts by the FBI, no significant leads or evidence have surfaced. The case remains open, and Amy Bechtel's disappearance continues to haunt the Lander community and the outdoor sports world. Her story has been featured in numerous true crime shows, but the mystery of what happened to this young and promising athlete remains unsolved. 32. The disappearance of Stephen Kocher, 2009. Stephen Kocher was a 30-year-old man from Street George, Utah, who vanished on December 13, 2009, in the Las Vegas suburb of Henderson, Nevada. The circumstances of his disappearance are strange and perplexing, leaving investigators and his family searching for answers that have yet to be found. Stephen was last seen on surveillance footage parking his car in a quiet residential neighborhood in Henderson. The footage shows him calmly exiting his car, walking away, and then disappearing from view. His car was left locked and parked on a street with his personal belongings inside, including his cell phone, iPod, and some Christmas presents. However, there was no sign of Stephen himself. The investigation revealed that Stephen had no apparent reason to be in Henderson. He had recently moved to Street George, Utah, after losing his job as a journalist and was struggling to find steady work. Despite this, he had not shown any signs of depression or plans to leave his life behind. In the weeks leading up to his disappearance, Stephen had made several trips to nearby towns, but the purpose of these trips remains unclear. His family and friends have described him as a kind, responsible, and deeply religious person, making his sudden disappearance all the more baffling. Extensive searches of the area where Stephen was last seen yielded no clues. Investigators have considered various theories, including the possibility that Stephen met with foul play, suffered from a mental health crisis, or chose to disappear voluntarily. However, none of these theories have been confirmed, and there is no evidence to suggest what might have happened to him. Stephen Kocher's disappearance remains one of the most puzzling missing persons cases in Nevada. His family continues to hope for answers, but as the years pass, the mystery only deepens. The image of Stephen calmly walking away from his car, never to be seen again, is a haunting reminder of how quickly and inexplicably someone can vanish. 33. The disappearance of Maureen Kelly, 2013. Maureen Kelly, a 19-year-old woman from Vancouver, Washington, disappeared under bizarre circumstances on June 9, 2013, while camping with friends in the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest. Maureen, who was also known as Anu, was described as a free spirit with a deep connection to nature and spirituality. On the day of her disappearance, Maureen told her friends that she was going on a spiritual quest and left the camp wearing nothing but a fanny pack that contained a knife and some matches. She walked into the dense forest near Canyon Creek Campground, completely nude, and was never seen again. When Maureen failed to return by nightfall, her friends became concerned and reported her missing. A large-scale search was launched, involving search and rescue teams, helicopters, and tracking dogs. Despite extensive efforts, no trace of Maureen was ever found. The search was hampered by the challenging terrain, dense underbrush, and the fact that she was barefoot and naked, leaving no clothing or footwear to assist trackers. The circumstances surrounding Maureen's disappearance have led to numerous theories. Some believe she may have succumbed to the elements, possibly getting lost or injured in the wilderness. Others suggest she might have intentionally disappeared to start a new life, given her interest in spirituality and alternative lifestyles. However, there is no evidence to support any of these theories, and the case remains unsolved. Maureen Kelly's disappearance is one of the many mysterious cases involving individuals who vanish in the wilderness without a trace. The Gifford-Pinchot National Forest, with its vast and rugged landscapes, is both beautiful and unforgiving, and it has claimed more than its share of lives over the years. Maureen's story serves as a stark reminder of the dangers that can lurk in even the most serene and sacred places. 34. The disappearance of Tiffany Daniels, 2013. Tiffany Daniels was a 25-year-old theater technician and artist from Pensacola, Florida, who disappeared on August 12, 2013, under mysterious circumstances. Tiffany was last seen leaving her job at Pensacola State College around 4:30 p.m. telling her supervisor that she was leaving early to take care of some unspecified personal matters. She was never seen again. Tiffany's car, a gray Toyota 4Runner, was found 8 days later in a parking lot at the entrance to Fort Pickens, a remote area on the western end of Santa Rosa Island. The car contained several of Tiffany's belongings, including her cell phone, wallet, and a bicycle, but there was no sign of her. The area where the car was found is known for its rugged terrain and is a popular spot for hiking and camping, leading to speculation that Tiffany might have gone for a walk on the beach or a hike in the dunes and met with an accident. The investigation revealed that Tiffany had been acting strangely in the days leading up to her disappearance. She had recently broken up with her boyfriend and was dealing with the stress of moving and finding a new place to live. However, her friends and family described her as a positive and creative person who was excited about the future. Despite extensive searches of the area, including the use of helicopters, search dogs, and ground teams, no trace of Tiffany has ever been found. The circumstances of her disappearance have led to numerous theories, including the possibility of foul play, an accidental drowning, or even voluntary disappearance. However, there is no concrete evidence to support any of these theories, and the case remains unsolved. Tiffany Daniels' disappearance is one of the most perplexing missing persons cases in Florida. Her family continues to search for answers, holding out hope that she may still be alive. The mystery of what happened to Tiffany Daniels on that August day remains a haunting question, a reminder of how quickly and inexplicably someone can vanish, leaving behind only questions and a deep sense of loss.